Hi everyone, bienvenidos, bienvenidos. You guys might see actually this way, a new face today. This is my friend Don. He's our guest today. He's going to be talking to us from San Antonio Tlayacapan, which if you don't know where that is, that's in the state of Jalisco in the beautiful area of Lake Chapala, which a lot of you are interested in. And I know that you guys have questions about the different pueblos in the Lake Chapala area. San Antonio Tlayacapan is kind of like a suburb, I feel, right, Don, of this area. It's not as big as Ajijic or Chapala by any means, but it's definitely a nice area between that a lot of people like living in. So Don is going to share a lot of his experience being in this area. Before we get started, though, why don't you guys chime in and say hi to Don? Let us know where you're watching from. Go ahead and chat in. That way we give some other people a chance to join us. Hi, Laura. Thanks for being here from New Mexico. Don, you have a new person watching you from New Mexico.
Oh, hello. Beautiful.
Don, where are you originally from?
Seattle.
Seattle.
Yeah.
Do you miss it?
Not the winters, but
Not the winters.
I miss the summers up there. But mostly because it's such nice weather. But we have such nice weather here that I don't miss it that much. But I have family and friends up there that I don't see it often enough. And my daughter lives up there, and I don't see her often enough.
Yeah, that would be a big reason to miss the area, family and friends. Hi, Ryan. Thanks for being here from Greeley, Colorado. Nice. I heard Colorado got like a really bad hailstorm. Hope you're okay over there in Greeley. Columbus. Nice. Idaho.
Rain. Oh, Texas.
Love our Texans. Love everybody, but Texas has a special place in my heart for sure.
Yeah, you spent a lot of time. Well, you go live in Austin half the year.
I split my time. So Austin, Texas has a special place. Arizona, nice. Moreno Valley, Maryland. Awesome. Thank you so much, everybody, for being here. I'm going to let my guest introduce himself and tell us a little bit about you, Don.
Okay, I was born and raised an hour outside of Seattle in Port Orchard, Washington. Went to University of Washington in Seattle, and then I worked in Venezuela for a couple of years. I met my first wife there. We got married, then traveled around a lot for many years, and then went back and lived in Port Orchard and raised my daughter there. So I've got like two separate lives in Port Orchard. And I retired 18 years ago and traveled all over the world looking for a place I wanted to live forever. Well, until I die. And Cuenca, Ecuador was my number one place, and Buenos Aires was right up there too. And then I came here. My mom had heard about this place when she got Puerto Vallarta, so I thought, I'll come here and look at it. Really liked it. And I don't like hot weather areas like the beaches, Puerto Vallarta or Miami. At 90 degrees with 90% humidity just kills me. And you get up about 5,000 feet in these hot countries, and you end up with springtime weather. And you get that in all the countries of Central and South America. You just get up in the highlands, and it's perpetual spring, and that's what it's like here. It's averages between 70 and 80 all year round for a high. Right now we're in a hot season for April and May, and the rainy season will start in the middle of June, and then temperatures will drop. But lately we're seeing highs in the middle 80s, sometimes upper 80s, but it's a dry heat with 20% humidity, a lot different than the beaches. So I decided I like it here best of all. I'm couple hours away from the U.S., and it's a really good place to live.
Yeah. So did you actually travel to Cuenca to check out that area?
Yeah, I went down there a couple of times. I really liked it, and I really thought that's where I was going to go. There's a big expat community there. The climate was really similar to here. It was up about 5,000 feet. It was really nice. But here we have a major international airport 30 minutes away. We have a huge city, the second biggest in Mexico, an hour away. The hospitals, the medical care in Guadalajara is some of the best in the world, better than a lot of American cities. Dentistry too. Whereas other places like Ecuador, Cuenca, they're 2 or 3 or 4 hours from a major airport in a big city, plus many hours on the airplane to get back to the States.
Mm-hmm.
So this place had a great combination of everything. A lot of people come down here, which everybody knows. They come down for medical and dental because the prices can be a fifth or a tenth of what it is in the U.S.
Yeah, considering everything, lodging, airfare, entertainment, medical bills, and everything, it's still significantly less expensive than what a lot of people pay to get the same care, or maybe even not the same care.
Yeah, yeah,
Maybe even less than ideal care. Yeah, so that's interesting because I know that some people, are always considering one or two other countries while they're researching where they're going to move to. And, Mexico is usually on that top 3 list. Aren't you glad you didn't go to Argentina right now, though? Because
their economy,
yeah, you'd be getting hit very hard.
I can't imagine what that would be like dealing with that. Watching prices go up by the day.
Yeah.
And then trying to get dollars, and I think it would be a mess.
Those poor people. Yeah.
And Mexico used to be like that. Mexico used to be very unstable, but the 5 years I've been here and quite a few years before that, it's been a very stable government, very stable economy down here in Mexico. So
yeah, let's talk about that because I know the peso right now is, for a lot of people who are probably already in Mexico, maybe if you haven't moved to Mexico yet and you're watching, this won't be as impactful for you as if you're already in Mexico and you see your dollar not be worth as much, right, as it was 3-4 months ago.
yeah.
So talk to us about that. What are you seeing? How do you feel the community is feeling it?
Some people are feeling it. Well, the closer you are, the harder you're trying to live cheaply, the harder it's going to be on you because monthly expenses have probably gone up by a few $100s for everybody, for lodging, for food, for groceries, for everything. People who have plenty of savings and plenty of income really don't care much. It's just a drop in the bucket to them. But people right on the edge, living as cheap as they can, are feeling it. And the place we're renting right now, we've been here coming up on 3 years. They priced it at $710 US. And at the time, we were just coming down, or we were in COVID, and the peso dropped all the way to 25 pesos per dollar. And when we rented this place, it was 21 and a half. So as the peso kept getting stronger and stronger, our price kept going up because it got locked in pesos. So what we pay now is close to $900 a month. So I pay $200 more, and the amount of pesos isn't much more. They've raised it a little bit over the 2 years, but not very, very much. But the $200 is mostly because the peso is so strong. So now we're paying $900 a month for this place.
Yeah,
so $200 just for lodging. That was a big jump.
Yeah, that's about 25%, 25%. So yeah, that's significant for sure.
Yeah.
And I think it's important for people to consider that when you're moving to a country where the dollar is not used, as opposed to, for example, Ecuador or Panama, right? And you have to consider that there are exchange rates. So you should consider like a variable in your budget every month so that you're not caught off guard, and maybe some months it'll be in your favor, but definitely there are going to be times where it won't be.
Exactly.
So tell us about that. When you first moved, did you decide, okay, I'm going to rent right away? Were you kind of still like, going back and forth between the United States, or how did that work out?
When I first came, I was really thinking about Guadalajara. And so I was in
Okay.
Guadalajara for a month before I came to Ajijic. And I just thought, I'll be around more Mexicans and my Spanish will get better. In the Chapultepec area of Guadalajara, there's tons of bars and restaurants and nightlife. And I was looking for apartments. And I thought, well, I'm going to go check Ajijic again before I make a decision, because I had been here about 6 years before that. I really liked it. So I'm on the bus and I come over the mountains and I just see all this color. It was just after rainy season, so all the hills were bright green, flowers on the trees. The colors here are amazing. They're just, every tree is a bright color, purple or blue or orange or red. And these are trees, not just little flowers or bushes. I thought, no, I want to stay here.
Yeah.
In Ajijic, Chapala area. It's just, the vibe here is just very mellow and easygoing and slow paced and relaxing and pretty. So yeah, I found a little studio apartment that was really nice, and they had a pool, and so I grabbed that. And that was $300 a month, and I thought, well, nobody can really visit me in a studio, so I looked at something bigger, and I saw a house, 3-bedroom, 3-bath house in Chapala, right on the bus route. I thought, yeah, that's $300, and that's a big house. So I took that, and that was the first real place I lived here. But it was in a poorer area of Chapala. That's why it was so cheap. But I thought $300 for a 2,200 square foot house was quite a deal.
Yeah, for sure.
And it was all Mexicans around me, and I liked that. But I learned later that, we have drunk people looking in the door of our house or the window of our house, or motorcycles going by, sounding like trucks downshifting, and very noisy.
Yeah. And then you actually had an unfortunate event at that house.
Yes, we were in Guadalajara one weekend. We came back and saw the place was kind of trashed. Somebody had broken in the back door, and because we had problems with the lock, we left the key in it. Well, they broke the window and then just turned the key. I thought, well, that was stupid. Although, when I see locksmiths, how easy it is to break open these doors, I thought, maybe they would have done that anyway.
Yeah.
And we didn't have much. Most of our furniture at that time came with the house. And some costume jewelry my wife had was stolen. That was about it. But the invasion of it bothered us, and my wife became very unhappy there. So we decided
to find something. Scared. And I could totally understand that, you not feeling comfortable after, your house has been broken into, which is, I think, a good lesson, because, I try to be very realistic on what you can find in different budgets and different areas, even in very, I would say, saturated places like, the Lake Chapala area, Ajijic, San Antonio, Chapala. But, you have to also see that with a grain of salt, that there are going to be places that are announced that are very inexpensive, but it might not be the safest part of town. And you have to consider everything when you're looking at where you're going to live, especially, if you're alone, or maybe you're not as careful and you know this about yourself. So I think a really good lesson here, Don. I appreciate you sharing it. So then you ended up moving to San Antonio?
Yeah, so we looked for another place, and I met my wife here. We got married, and she's Mexican, and I said, you really want to live in San Antonio? It's part of Gringolandia. Ajijic is the center. We're right next to it. And probably almost the majority of people in San Antonio are expats. And she said, oh, yeah, I don't have a problem with that. I want to live there. Okay. So I thought, that she would want to be in a Mexican neighborhood rather than a gringo neighborhood. But she's very happy here. We're close to all the nightlife. The nightlife centers around Ajijic and San Antonio. There's not nearly as much in Chapala, and there's nothing in Rivera. So it's between San Antonio and Ajijic. So when we go out at night, we're usually within 5 minutes of wherever we're going to go, and that's really nice. And we feel a lot safer here because it's a gated community with a big electronic door, so it feels very
Yeah.
safe here.
You can at least at least it prevents just anybody from being able to come in and out.
Right. Yeah.
Hmm.
There's 6 houses, 8 houses here. So if somebody came in and started walking around, somebody's going to see them through their window and go ask, "Who are you? What are you doing here?" So it'd be hard for them to kind of sneak around, but like they could in Chapala. They could walk around the house and get in the back and different things.
Now, in your experience, or just having that experience now in your back pocket, would you still recommend somebody live in Chapala?
Definitely. I think we had bad luck. I think even the area we lived in wasn't that bad. Although you don't put anything outside or it's going to get stolen. We had to put a cable and lock on our plastic garbage can because I know they would have stolen it.
Oh my God.
I put in an old tire that was just worthless just so I wouldn't bump the house when I drove the car in. That was stolen. I had a 4-foot hose that was broken apart to just rinse the car. That was stolen. So
Yeah.
anything that's outside there gets stolen. But there's a lot of good areas of Chapala, and there's a lot of expats who live in Chapala and are very happy there and prefer not being so close to all the rest of the expats, over here. And what everybody calls Gringolandia because every other house is expat in this area.
Yeah.
And in our neighborhood here with the 8 houses, I don't think there's another. Everybody here is an expat. So.
Yeah. But your wife isn't. Your wife is from Guadalajara, right?
Yes. Yeah, and so she grew up here and has lived here her whole life. She doesn't speak English. And her son is an incredible guitar player and singer. And since he was 11 years old, he's been doing gigs and getting paid for them. And he thinks, wow, I couldn't believe when he was younger, he couldn't believe somebody would pay him to do what he loves.
That's
so
awesome.
He's been coming to Ajijic for like 10 years. And my wife would come with him quite often. And he has quite a following of expats here who go to the different places. He plays here 3 or 4 nights a week, and they go to see him. And so my wife would come, and she got to know a lot of them, and that's how I met them. And they become my friends. So actually, they were her friends first. And a couple of them speak decent Spanish, so she could communicate with them. And when I came down, I met her and she had a boyfriend and another couple, and we all became friends and hung out together. And over the months, I got to know her, even though she had a boyfriend. And then at one point, they broke up. And after that, we started dating and eventually got married. But yeah, she loves going out with all the gringos, even though she's totally Mexican and can't speak English. But she understands a lot more than people think she does.
Yeah. I guess you do a lot of translations for her, like you're translating the conversation throughout the night.
Yeah, depending on the person.
Yeah.
I like it a lot. It's fun to translate and helps me with my Spanish, so I like it.
That's good. You're a good man, Don. I get very, very tired of it after a little while whenever, my husband spends time with my family. And then after, a day of me translating everything, I'm like, you know what? You're just going to have to half understand everything because I get tired of translating. So you're a good man.
Well, I guess I don't do it as much as you do. So
yeah, maybe. Yeah, exactly.
I would get tired of it if I had to do it that
much. So, in 2023, I mean, I know a lot of people are making their budgets thinking about moving to Mexico, and particularly this area, right? The Lake Chapala area, particularly Ajijic, which I know everybody has probably heard of if you're watching this channel. So do you think it's still worth it in 2023? And do you think people can still actually afford to live there if they're coming on a fixed income?
I think it's definitely still worth coming because the climate hasn't changed at all.
Mm-hmm.
Still an amazing climate. I don't know if it's the second best in the world that we hear a lot, but it's got to be one of the best. The views are great. We've got all these mountains around us, the lake, and again, so close to Guadalajara and the international airport. It's definitely worth coming. But with inflation and the peso getting stronger, it's become a little more expensive. So what would have cost X amount of dollars 5 years ago now is probably 25% higher, maybe 30% higher than it was. Restaurant I go to all the time that my stepson plays at is Adelitas. And when I first got here, they had chicken wings for 60 pesos, which was $3. And they had fish and chips for 60 pesos, which was $3. Fish and chips aren't so bad anymore, $5. That's okay. But the wings are $8 or $9. $3 to $9 in 5 years. So
Yeah.
And that's actually not correct because I always use a 20-to-1 exchange rate, and it's not. It's 18 or 17 and a half. So it's a little bit more than those prices.
Yeah. The cost of chicken has gone up and the cost of food has gone up, and also the cost of minimum wage has gone up. Minimum wage income or salaries have gone up. So all those things combined have affected not only the Lake Chapala area, but definitely, this area feels it a lot because maybe things usually cost a little bit more in this area anyway.
But we go to the States about once a year, and every time I go, I just get sticker shock. And all of a sudden, even with the price rises down here, it seems so cheap. We were in Miami and just went out and got a sandwich, and it cost me $16 for a sandwich.
Yeah.
How did that happen? Have I been out of the country that long?
Like, when did deli meat become like a luxury?
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Well, it's without getting too much into like political issues, but the more people fight for higher wages, which I think people should absolutely be entitled to, but the consumer is certainly going to pay for a lot of that too, right? So because a lot of companies are not going to take a lower profit. So, without getting too much into politics, but yeah, I totally understand it and I get it too. Man, it's hard to go out and be like, wow, it's so expensive to eat out in the US.
Yeah, it sure shocks me. Considering, down here we go out 4 or 5 nights a week. I wouldn't be able to afford that in the States.
Yeah.
That'd be just too much.
Yeah. You would definitely feel it.
Especially
regarding
with and live music.
Regarding, cost of living, a big expense that I think people will have to consider is healthcare. And we always hear, right, that, and we talk about this too on the channel, that, in general, healthcare costs are significantly more affordable in Mexico than they are in the United States if you were to be paying, even if you have insurance in the US, if you have one of these plans where your deductible is very high and you have to meet your deductible first in order for insurance to cover you, even for those insurance policies, paying out of pocket in Mexico if you didn't have insurance is usually significantly more affordable. What is your experience with that?
When I first came down here, I was paying my medical premium each month went from like $250 a month to $750 a month over a 4-year period. I said, wow, this is ridiculous. It's like paying rent or a mortgage.
Yeah.
So I came down here a little earlier than I expected, and I was paying $150 a month for my insurance here with a much lower deductible. And so I had that for 3 or 4 years until I qualified for Medicare, and now I have Medicare. And if something happens to me, I'll fly back to the States. And what some people do, and I see advertised a lot, is medical vac, I think it's called. You pay for a program that if you really get in bad straits, that they will fly you to the States. But you pay yearly or monthly premium for that. I haven't thought about that. I figure the chances of being in that bad a shape, I don't think are that high. And if something happens, I can fly myself to the States and use Medicare. But I know some people who have had surgeries down here, and they all go to Guadalajara, and they all say the hospitals are perfectly clean and white. Everybody speaks English. The prices are a fraction of the U.S., like a fifth or a tenth of the price. But you've got to pay up front, and they won't let you leave the hospital until you pay. And when we were in Chapala, we had a lady next to us who didn't have much money and didn't have insurance at all. She fell and broke her femur.
Oof.
And they took her to the Ajijic clinic, which is a cheaper hospital. There's a couple newer ones that are considered a lot better. And her bill for the surgery and the hospital and everything was like $5,000. Well, in the States, that wouldn't even cover the ambulance probably. But she didn't have 5,000. So she should have had some kind of insurance or something. So she was in a mess. But her landlord, who was also our landlord, loaned her the money. And hopefully he got the money back, because they wouldn't let her out of the hospital until she paid. So
yeah, it's a good lesson. If anybody's thinking about moving to Mexico and for whatever reason you don't plan on getting private insurance because maybe you can't qualify for it if you have pre-existing conditions, or maybe you just simply, it's just one of those expenses that, for whatever reason you just don't find value in, have some savings, or at least have a credit card with a significant limit that you can use, so that you can get released.
But health insurance here it's fair, and it's very reasonably priced, very decent deductible, and they do pay. There's no scams or anything like that. It's very reputable until you start getting into your 70s. And then somewhere early to mid 70s, they say the prices just skyrocket to the point where it's unaffordable. It becomes like $2,000 a month instead of a year. So as soon as I qualified for Medicare, I got that.
Yeah. So I don't know that it would be, it honestly depends on the person and their specific situation and what kind of hospitals they're going to go to and the insurance policy. And I know it can be very expensive. I don't know that as much as $2,000 a month, but I definitely do think that it can be very pricey.
Probably an exaggeration, yeah.
Yeah, no, I totally get it. I totally understand. So what about, like, you've been in the Lake Chapala area for 5 years now?
Yes.
5 years. 5.5. In those 5.5 years, have you noticed a difference in the way that the locals feel about the influx of foreigners coming in?
No. I've wondered about that off and on. I don't know that many locals, except my wife's friends and family and neighbors or something. But my feeling, and I think most of the expats' feelings, is that they treat us very well. They're glad to have us here, even though they get priced out of some neighborhoods because the housing gets too expensive for them. But we provide a lot of jobs: gardeners, care, homemakers, housekeepers, drivers. So we bring a lot of money in, and so they like that. They do get annoyed with people who have been here a long time and can't still speak any Spanish. Everybody says, I'm going to learn it. 5 years later, they don't know any more than they did. But in Ajijic, you don't need to learn Spanish, really, because almost every Mexican who works in Ajijic is going to speak English. But not so much in Chapala.
Yeah.
And definitely not in Jocotepec. So if you start getting out, you better learn some Spanish.
Yeah.
But I feel like they treat us very well. They're very nice to us, very friendly. to me anyway, I've never had a personal problem with anybody. So, but very nice people. So
Yeah. And I bet it also has to do with the attitude of the person, right? Like, you
yeah,
know, if you're a person who's complaining about everything and you just wish it was like back home and you're voicing that to the
yeah,
people, your neighbors or the other locals around you, well then they might, start to think, then why did you move here? So I understand why that sentiment
yeah.
sometimes happens, right? But it also has to do a lot. Like if they meet people like you, I mean, come on, it's like impossible not to like you, Don.
Oh, thank you, Mariana. You're so sweet.
Yeah, so
That's
I
why I
just think
like
that,
Mexicans.
yeah, I think it totally depends on the person, how much you're willing to even just try to learn more, get to know your neighbors, partake in like local events, give back if you can, join a charity. Those kinds of things really help.
Yeah, and it's what I think is funny of all the expats that I know. And I have a circle of friends, but then there's a lot of people I just know. I really never see a cranky expat, that's
Mm,
complaining and whining and this. But I get on a Facebook page with expats, and I think, I never meet these guys. They just sit there and whine and complain all the time.
yeah,
Somebody asks a decent question. Well, why would you ask that? Well, if you can't do that, you should go home. Well, and then
I
somebody
know.
else goes, well, don't tell them that because they're just asking a question. Why do you have to be so crazy? No, you're the crazy. I think, oh my God,
Yeah.
are these the same people, or do I just not meet those people? Because they
Yeah.
so disgusting on the internet.
Yeah, groups
But
are vicious.
geez,
Yeah. So
but
you're best off not joining some of those groups and just actually meeting people in person. Keyboard
yeah,
warriors are not the same when you meet them in person,
yeah, that's yeah,
right?
there's a big difference.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, what I'm going to go ahead and take some questions that I'm sure some people have for you.
Okay,
Um, in the meantime, I'd love for you to tell us, I know that May is like the hottest month for this area, for the Lake Chapala area. Have you gotten any rain this week?
we got a little bit 2 or 3 days ago, and I just happened to be. I needed ice, so I walked to the local market with our dog, and that's when it rained.
Okay,
First rain of the season, and it's
good.
only a 5-minute walk, but I got pretty wet. So did the dog.
Oh no.
Well, nice timing. Don't
But
see
also
rain
you need
for
it.
8 months, and it comes right now. But
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it was nice. We're all waiting and anxious for the rain. It cools everything down, gets the dust out of the air, turns everything green. Sometimes some spectacular thunder and lightning storms. So being from Seattle, I thought, I'm not going to look forward to a rainy season. We have that 11 months out of the year, but you look forward to it here. So.
One question that I get a lot, and I'm going to feel free to start posting your questions, everybody, if you're watching this now. But one question that I get a lot is whether the lake is smelly or not.
Smelly? I've never lived close enough to it to notice, but when I've walked by it, I haven't really smelled anything. But it's not. I wouldn't go in it. They
Yeah,
think you
you wouldn't go
can,
swimming.
but as it comes to the shore, there's foam and it's brown and there's all the green algae, and I wouldn't want our dog to go in it. I wouldn't step foot in it. I wouldn't eat a fish out of that lake, although there's a lot of fishermen out there, and they eat a lot of the fish from there.
Mm-hmm.
And they've got a guy that comes down, I think, from Harvard and checks the water, and he says you can drink it. And most people here say, I don't think so.
No way.
No way. No. We buy all our water. My wife has her whole family, their whole life, they just don't drink tap water here. But a lot of people have filters and stuff. But I wish, if this lake was something like Lake Tahoe, just a beautiful lake that you water ski on, well, we'd probably be another Cancun here. So,
Yeah. You're talking about the cost of living behind now. Imagine that. That
Yeah.
would triple it,
Oh
quadruple
yeah.
it.
It would just be crazy. It'd be a completely different place if that
Yeah.
lake was decent. But it's shallow, it's muddy, it's dirty. There's chemicals that flow into it. Um, People drown in it every
Oh.
year. Somebody's drowning. They fall out of their boat. They get tangled in the weeds and stuff. And then
Mhm.
there's razor wire because when the lake was really far out, they would have their animals, their cattle out there, and they would have fences. And it's a very shallow lake, so if you're falling in the water or swimming, you could scratch your leg on barbed wire or something. So
Yeah.
nobody really goes in it. Some people will kayak in it, and the local fishermen will go out, and maybe some kids will play in it, local kids, but that's about
Mhm.
it.
Yeah. It's pretty to look at, but it's not really something you want to go swim in.
Yeah, and it's pretty to look at from a distance, not so
Yeah.
pretty right at the
Not from right
shoreline.
here.
Yeah.
Yeah. I fully agree with you. Um, this is a good question. So somebody's wondering, what do you do for not you specifically? They're wondering about themselves, but I'm sure this will come up, for your experience. How do you access your money? Do you still have an account in the United States, or do you have a Mexican bank account now? And how do you pay your bills?
I thought about getting a Mexican account, but really don't need it. I have a U.S. account at Charles Schwab, and they pay for my ATM fees. So I don't have any ATM fees, and they give a pretty decent exchange rate. So when I need cash, I just go to a bank, go to the ATM, and usually pull out $300 at a time. And that's how I get my money for most things. For
Yeah.
my rent, I use Remitly, and I send it actually to my wife, and then she sends it to them because Remitly wouldn't let me send it to them directly because I guess the Mexican bank sometimes think that they think it's suspicious, and
Yeah,
so
they
they
have to
wouldn't let
pay
me send it
commission.
to the landlord. Yeah, so my wife does, and we're buying a piece of property on the outskirts of Chapala, and it's
Oh,
supposed to be,
nice.
yeah, it's supposed to be developed by
Congrats.
the University of Guadalajara, and they say they're going to break ground this year, so I'm excited about that. And that was over a 5-year payment plan. So we pay that also by Remitly to my wife, and then she pays it. So, but
Was this a
otherwise,
pre-sale, or was it just land and then you hired an architect and a builder, or was it a pre-sale
it was
developer?
yeah, it was more like a pre-sale. I really don't understand real well, but it was like some kind of group cooperative, and everybody buys a lot. They had all these lots out there and stuff, and it was like $21,000 with a 180-degree view of the lake and the mountains. It's just spectacular.
Wow.
Yeah, when right now you can't find a lot anywhere, even without a view, for under 100,000, basically. And so we bought
Wow.
it, thinking, well, we'll take a risk and take a chance and maybe build on it if this goes through, and I'm hoping it will. But those two are larger expenses, so I Remitly the money for those. Everything else, we just go to the ATM like once a week or so for groceries and nightlife and everything.
Yeah. Which
But
is a very, very cash economy in Mexico. This is totally normal if somebody's
yeah,
watching and wondering, like, why would you carry so much cash? It's absolutely normal to have
yeah.
cash on hand.
Most people pay cash when they go out to dinner. Um, our dinner bills with booze and everything, maybe $30 or something. So you just pay cash, and that way the servers get their tips right away. But a lot of people pay by credit cards too. All the restaurants that cater to Great Goes take credit cards. So
Yeah.
if I run out of cash, I pay by credit card.
Yeah. And if you have a credit card that gives you points or rewards, it's obviously a plus for you to have something like that on hand too.
Oh, and when I go shopping at Walmart or Soriana, when you're spending over $100, we use credit cards. They don't pay cash there either. So
Got it. Yeah. That makes sense. Why, it probably prevents like some counterfeit bills from making it into their registers. Have you ever used Wise? Because I know Wise and Remitly are kind of the two companies that most people use. And can you give us your experience on either one?
I've never used Wise, but I'm happy with Remitly, except that the two places that I was paying, they won't let me pay. They wouldn't let me pay for the property because it was a corporation I was paying, and then they wouldn't let me pay my landlord. They didn't give me a reason for that. So I have to give it to my wife to pay. So that's annoying.
So those are the only two transactions you've used Remitly for?
Yeah.
Got
Yeah.
it. So you haven't sent it to like somebody for them to pick up at an OXXO and then for them to like, yeah, I understand.
No. But I do
Because
go to, if I buy something over Amazon Mexico or Marketplace, Mercado Libre, I go to OXXO and pay it.
got it. Yeah, that is a good workaround, by the way, because I was talking yesterday about some of the benefits of having a Mexican bank account. And one of them is having a debit card where you can pay for things like Amazon Mexico, Mercado Libre. But a good workaround is actually going to OXXO with your international card and paying for it, or with cash. And then, you can pay for the product or service that way. So
yeah, because they won't take an out-of-country credit card at those two stores.
Yeah. Because, somebody's wondering what's the best way to exchange US dollars to Mexican pesos without all the fees. Well, without all the fees, I mean, I think Don's way is the best way, having a card like Charles Schwab that doesn't charge you an international transaction fee. However, you do still have to pay ATM fees when you withdraw, right?
No, they pay that.
They pay entirely, like even if the ATM in Mexico charges you a fee.
Yep. Yeah, and they do. They charge $3, $4, $5 every time I take cash out. And
But
so
then
if I take
Charles Schwab reimburses you?
yep, every month I get a
Oh,
little
wonderful.
deposit for
See, I
all
thought
the
you
service.
still got charged for the ATM fee, but not for the international transaction
Oh,
fee.
and
So
I don't get an international fee.
so
And
your
then
money is if you get 2,000 pesos, you get 2,000 pesos deducted, or the equivalent depending on the exchange rate.
right, and the exchange rate is pretty good. I've checked it sometimes. I'll look at what Charles Schwab gave me, and then I'll look at what the current rate is, and they're pretty close, very acceptable. Where like there's an HSBC bank that I use a lot because it's close. Their ATM, they charge $4, 80 pesos. And then they say, do you want us to convert it? And I look at their exchange rate and go, heck no. Geez.
It's like
I mean, it should
16.
be like 1780, but it's 1670. Or I go, you're
Yeah.
crazy. That's a horrible exchange rate.
Yeah, of
So,
course. They got to
so
make up their money somehow.
yeah, get a bank account that reimburses you, like Charles Schwab and some of the others, and just take out cash as you need it, and have a credit card.
Yeah. And also try to avoid ATMs, when people get paid, which is around this time of the month, around the 15th and around the 30th of the month. That's
Yep.
paid.
There's been a few times where I go in and all the machines are out of money.
Yeah. You have to wait a day or two.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
have to wait till Monday to be able to get cash out.
And hopefully you don't need any cash.
Yeah, there's been a couple times where it was inconvenient. I borrowed money from a friend once because I couldn't get cash out on a 3-day weekend. So,
yeah. You have to plan ahead.
yeah. But it's rare.
Somebody has a question about the infrastructure in Lake Chapala maybe not keeping up. Like, for example, sewage, water treatment issues. What's your experience on this, or what are you hearing?
Well, I would say infrastructure is probably, in my mind, one of the biggest negatives about Mexico in this area in particular. In Ajijic, the streets are cobblestone and they're kind of pretty-ish, and it gives it kind of an atmosphere, but they are miserable to walk on.
Yeah.
The sidewalks are horrible. The roads, well, when I got here, the main road was just horrible, full of potholes all over. Now it's been paved over, and there's a bike pathway, and it's a lot nicer. But the side roads, geez, side roads could just be pure potholes, and you're driving all over the road trying to miss all the potholes and not scratch your bottom of your car up. So yeah, highways. I hate the topes too, the speed bumps. Oh,
Yeah.
they're so big that you have to go over them kitty corner, or you'll
Yeah.
scratch the bottom of your car. They're so big. Yeah, highways and sidewalks.
What
Uh,
about water or sewage? Have you noticed any difference? And maybe like the water pressure or the water being turned off more often because they have to do more repairs to any of the piping systems?
I've never had a problem any place I've lived, but we just went to a friend's place a couple weeks ago, and they had their bathtub filled up with water. They were in a nice area with 1,500 a month home. Well, $250,000, $300,000 homes.
Yeah.
And every year they said at this time every year the water table gets kind of low, and they start not being able to pump as much. So they have trucks going around filling up the Ajijic up on the roof to give them water and stuff. I thought, wow, you have a $300,000 house and you run out of water every May. So there are water issues. There's a lot of places where there's big sewage issues in Riberas del Pilar. You drive around there and people have, what's it called? Not a septic tank, but
A tinaco?
no, for sewage, where they just pump it into a hole. And
Oh,
then
got it. Yeah. I mean, a septic.
yeah, there's a word, I can't think of what it is, but it's not really even a septic tank. It's just, yeah, a holding tank, and it overflows and then runs through the streets.
I
And so you
see.
drive around Riberas and the roads can be wet and you can smell it, and it's, ugh. Yeah, so that was the first place I lived in the studio. And I would be walking up to the main road and have to walk around all the sewage and mud puddles of sewage and stuff.
Yeah. So
Um,
it pays to know these things because if you have no idea about these like little issues, right? You might be surprised that you're moving into like a really high-end neighborhood. Like I hear the Racket Club has issues all the time. And
I've
that's
heard
kind of
that.
the higher end neighborhood in this area. One of them anyway. Riberas, I also hear a lot of issues in Riberas, which they have the big, colonial looking homes and the big, which does have an older infrastructure probably. It has older like plumbing and things like that, right?
Yeah, yeah, they could use some infrastructure changes, fixes in Riberas, that's for sure.
Now I hear that they're actually replacing all the cobblestones and they're going to make it into flatter streets in most of the main streets in Ajijic. Have you heard about this?
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's what I read. I mean, it wasn't in don't take it for absolute truth because I read it in a Facebook group. So, I didn't read it in like a newspaper or any like official government publication.
Well, I personally would like to see that, because even though the cobblestones do have an atmosphere to them, they're very inconvenient. And I mean, it's really easy to sprain ankles. For older people, it's really hard for them to walk on it. Really hard to ride a bike on them. I
Yeah.
think they are good for when it really pours like crazy. It comes down those roads like 6 or 8 inches deep. And I think maybe those cobblestones hold up better than some other type of road would. Maybe that's one of their advantages. I'm not sure, but they're difficult. They're very bumpy. Your car is just shaking all the time as you're driving on those roads. So
Yeah.
Chapala, I've noticed they get rid of some of their cobblestone roads and they put concrete in, and they're much smoother and nice. And somebody who's in a wheelchair could get along a lot better in Chapala than Ajijic.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's,
Although I still tell people that if you have, if you're in a wheelchair and you don't have any family members to help you get up to some areas where there's no ramp, I mean, there's really nowhere in Mexico that I would say you'd be 100% okay. Um, I
no,
don't know how you feel about that, Dawn.
yeah, I don't really notice it that much. I don't know anybody in a wheelchair or anything, but I would say it'd be very difficult for somebody in a wheelchair to live here, especially Ajijic. Chapala's flatter, no hills really, and better sidewalks and streets. But in any case, coming down here by yourself in a wheelchair would be really difficult, I would think.
I agree. Yeah. Even if it is flatter, there's many restaurants and retail shops and pharmacies and even hospitals, believe it or not, that have no ramps.
Right.
Um,
Oh yeah, it's not like
some
the
small
U.S.
clinics, yeah, all they have is stairs. It's like,
Yeah.
what?
Yeah, they'd
How
be
could this
constantly
be?
running into stairs.
Yeah. Somebody's wondering if do you think that they could live in this area on $1,600 a month for a single person?
Yes, because I've seen people on Facebook say they're doing it, but you're pinching pennies. You're
Mm-hmm.
living very, finding a. We lived in the house. It was $300. It's now probably $500. It's pretty hard to find a $300 house anymore. But you're going to do that. You'd be living in a small house, 1 bedroom, 1 bath house, with no amenities, very cheap. Not in Ajijic, in this outside of Chapala. Wouldn't have a car. Don't go out hardly ever. Only eat at home. Eat and cook like the Mexicans. Don't use electricity is cheap. All you're doing is using light bulbs. But if you turn on the air conditioner, you're going to pay a fortune for that. So, but thankfully, you don't need air conditioning here. So they can do it, but I think they're just living as cheap as humanly possible. There's a new Facebook page called Inexpensive Living in Chapala. And I forget the name of the person who's running that, but she's asking people, how cheap can you live? And so if anybody's interested, try to find that Facebook page, Inexpensive Living in Mexico. And
Yeah, how will you get an idea?
Here. Yeah, and they go out, they list anonymously, they list their budgets and how much they're spending, and people are living less than $1,200 a month, single down here.
Mm-hmm.
So, but
That's
yeah,
a good tip.
a frugal lifestyle.
I'm gonna have to check it out. So I'm sure people are wondering if you're willing to share, just a ballpark of you and your wife. How much do you guys spend a month?
I don't keep track, so I can't just say, but now about $900 a month in rent. We have a car, it's paid for it. Probably not more than $50 a month in gas. Our electricity bill is, we don't have air conditioning or anything, so just lights. That's probably $20 a month.
Mm-hmm.
Our gas bill is probably $20 a month, $25 a month. That's for the dryer, the hot water heater, and the stove and oven. Water, we paid, usually when you rent, you don't pay water, but we were asked to pay it, and it was $70 for a year. So, okay. We pay, I think it's about $30, $35 a month for our internet through Total Play. You get internet and cable TV.
Mm-hmm.
I use Netflix, which is, I pay $20 for that.
Your cell phone bill?
Cell phone bill. I was on Verizon and I was paying $90 a month. Now I went to Mint Mobile in the States, so $15 a month. And now I have a phone down here with Telcel for $15 a month. So I've got two phones at $15 a month each. That's so I can keep my U.S. number when you go to the IRS or Social Security or banking. They want to call you with a code, and they don't want you to have IP, phone over IP. So I want my U.S. phone number.
Does your phone have like the dual SIM capability?
My phone doesn't have it, and that was one thing I thought about, but I just bought another phone for $200.
Oh, got it. So you have physically two different phones.
Two different phones, yeah.
Okay.
And I'm doing real estate. And that way I've got one phone for real estate and one for my other stuff.
Yeah, makes sense.
We don't cook that much at home, so we probably only spend like $300-400 a month on food, I think, at the grocery store. And I
Mm-hmm.
think our biggest expense is going out, entertainment. Uh, Probably 120 a week for that. Going out,
Okay.
eating dinners out, beers, other drinks, live music, dancing. That's what our life is down here, pretty much, is that. So that's our biggest expense. Um, I think that's all the expenses.
So you're looking at about $2,200 a month for two of you, without considering like, you might fly back to go see your daughter, or, you have to do the renewal of your tenencia on your car, or,
Yeah, we've had a
maybe a
couple
small repair at home.
car repair things that we had to do. Yeah, and I have a motorhome that's up in Florida right now, so we go up for 6 weeks and go around the country in the motorhome. That costs a couple, 3, 4, 5 thousand or something.
Nice.
So I'm not including that.
Yeah.
Uh, so travel expenses are extra.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And your Medicare, I guess you also pay for that monthly.
Yeah, that comes out of my Social Security check.
Got it.
So
Yeah.
I forgot what I pay. It's not very much though.
Yeah.
It's pretty
Which
pretty reasonable.
I mean, I feel like you would probably agree with me that I think everybody who is a US citizen and is eligible for Medicare should, and is thinking about living in Mexico, should absolutely sign up for it as
I
a plan to be able to come back to the US and get treatment if in case they don't have any sort of insurance in Mexico.
I agree. Yeah, because
Yeah.
if Mexico's insurance stayed cheap my whole life, I maybe would have said no to Medicare, but it doesn't. It
Yeah.
goes up a lot when you get in your mid 70s, and it becomes so people don't have it. They insure themselves, and they're taking a big risk. Um, but you don't get $100,000 medical bills down here like you do in the States. Down here is going to be 20, 30, 40 for something major, probably. So,
Yeah.
like our neighbor, $5,000 for a broken femur. To me, I think, oh, that's pretty cheap. I think I don't know what it would cost in the States, but
For surgery and everything, yeah, that is very affordable without insurance. Yeah, absolutely.
yeah. And
Um,
dental down here, I've had friends come down to do dental, and it's like a fifth of what they would pay in the States. So,
yeah,
and
with really good dentists. I mean,
yeah,
like you get like they have good hands. They don't hurt you as much. I don't know. In my experience, that's how I felt. Like it's just like, wow, I get treated like a person. Sometimes I've had teeth cleanings done in the US, and they're a little rough. you know?
they can be.
Or maybe my teeth were in worse shape. I don't know. Um This is a question that I think is important. I think we get asked about a lot. And, I don't claim to be the news channel. I don't claim to be like um, somebody who has all the stats on crime and things like that. But I think it's valid to ask, how do you feel about the cartels around the Chapala area?
Well, we know there are people that live around here that are in the cartels, and every once in a while, I'd say maybe once a year, there's like a police bust on a house, and they'll go and they'll dig and find bodies in the backyard or something, and I'll see on the Facebook pages, oh, geez, that was the house I lived next door to, or something like that.
Wow. Ooh.
But that's like maybe once a year that happens. We hear about all the stuff going on in Mexico all over. There's some horrible stuff that happens. But it's usually cartels against cartels or against the police force or something. 5 years here, and all the people I know and all the people that they know, nobody has had a problem with anybody in a cartel or any kind of violence. There have been a couple deaths like years ago, but it's very, very rare. For the most part, we don't see or hear a thing around here, hardly ever.
Yeah.
I grew up in a little Port Orchard with 5,000 people. There is more happening there than there is here. So every place has something, but you don't see it here. So
Yeah.
we
Which, I
feel
mean,
pretty safe.
yeah, you just have to also be aware that, your crime happens everywhere, right? And it's not like Mexico is any. Yes, I know that by the sheer numbers of it, it does appear to be significantly worse in other countries. But like Don said, I agree with that. It is a lot of cartel against cartel. It doesn't mean you can't be at the wrong place at the wrong time.
Right.
And there have been unfortunate
But,
events that happen with Americans and Canadians too. But yeah, anyway.
and there can be, I think there's more petty crime here. Like I said, they would steal a tire and our hose, anything that wasn't tied down. So we had to lock our plastic garbage can down. There's some scams here where they shoot you with mustard and then try to help you, and somebody runs off with a purse or a wallet, or somebody leaves their purse on a chair and it disappears. There's a significant amount of that. And there's a couple Facebook pages, Crime in Chapala, and they every time there's something, it's usually on those pages, and I read those every day. So
You're aware
that's
of
a
what the newest
really
thing is that you need to steer away from.
those,
Yeah.
those Facebook pages. I mean, there's like 15 of them for rentals and sales in Ajijic and Chapala. There's 2 of them for crime. There's a couple, 3 general ones. There's a one for foodies. There's so much information in those Facebook pages. There's Spanish ones. There's English, most English, for the expats and stuff. So lots of
Yeah,
information.
there's a lot of information out there. I agree. So what would be your advice, like if somebody was thinking about moving to Mexico in the next 6 months, out of the things that you've learned, how do you feel like somebody could maybe learn from you or learn from the things that you have been surprised with or maybe not surprised with? What is your advice for anybody who's thinking about moving to Mexico?
Let's see. My advice is, if I was doing it from scratch, my advice would be to come down, stay in an Airbnb for a couple, 3 weeks, get a car, travel around the area, get to know all the different little towns and suburbs. Do a lot of research even before you come down on the neighborhoods. And if you decide that you like it, then start looking for an apartment, either on Facebook pages, or there's lots of real estate agencies with people willing to help finding rentals, like myself. And don't buy anything until you've been here at least a year, and maybe try living in 2 or 3 places. And if you can, check out the place different times of the day to see if you have loud neighbors who like to party till 4 in the morning. One of the biggest complaints here is noise. Mexico has a lot of holidays, and every little town has a patron saint, and every little town has about a 9-day period where they party for their patron saint. There's bands blasting music all day or early in the morning and late at night. There's bottle rockets, cohetes that are firing up in the sky. There's church bells banging every 15 minutes. Music bounces off the hills. A lot of people on the hills say the noise is just crazy because of how it bounces up there.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to find a place, if you're going to be bothered by noise, find a place that's not real noisy.
Yeah.
So,
The further away I feel like from the center of a town you are, the quieter it can be.
Yeah, because usually the plaza and the church are the center of the town. And yeah, that's where a lot of the noise and a lot of the people are.
Mm-hmm.
Some people like it, and others complain about it. And that's, again, where you get on the Facebook pages and they start griping at each other. Well,
Yeah.
Mexico is loud, it's noisy, get used to it or go home.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
Our first place had lots of dogs barking and lots of roosters crowing. lots of motorcycles tearing up the hill.
All the annoying noises.
The place here is so quiet. It's amazing. So,
Yeah. So you lucked out. You feel like this is the house that you're going to stay in for a while?
maybe.
Oh, well, you're building, so actually no, you might end up moving.
Yeah, and we might be doing that. We'll see how that development goes and what goes on up there.
Yeah. Hey, I really wish you luck with that, and I hope that you guys are doing your due diligence as far as looking up, whether this land is making sure that it's like, titled and it's not a ejido and all of that.
Yeah, it's not a heel.
Okay.
And well, if we're screwing up, there's about 350 others that are screwing up too, because that's how many lots they have available.
Wow. Okay.
So it's a big development. So
I see.
I knew it's a risky proposition that I could lose everything. But I thought, well, there's a lot to gain. So if it comes through.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a lot of other people who will be really angry, not just me. So.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a lot of people.
Yeah, they're doing their due diligence.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you for your time, Dawn.
Thank
I
you.
want to thank your wife for lending you to all of us for this last hour and couple minutes. And I just am so thankful for you sharing, part of your story with us. A lot of really good tips. I think a lot of people probably learned some really good things from today's chat. And yeah, for the rest of you who are watching from home, and I think Don has given some really good advice. You definitely want to talk to, some of the people who are living locally, find out what some of the local rents are. I do have to say though, if you're looking for rentals online, one big piece of advice is your negotiating is going to be big. How you negotiate is going to be big. So my advice is don't post your highest budget up front, um, because learn to know what the rentals are going for in that particular area. Because if you post that you have, a $2,000 budget, guess what? You might have gotten a place that would have cost you 18,000 pesos, but now you're going to get people messaging you directly telling you that that same 18,000 peso rental that they had is now 28 or 30, right? Because now you posted a much larger income.
Yeah.
So
Good point.
learn to negotiate, and learn to not that I'm saying that you should negotiate the price that people tell you. That's not what I'm saying, but just learn how things are done in Mexico. And that's not usually how they're done. You shouldn't just like go out there and say, I have $2,000 to spend, so therefore, give me what you have. I don't know if Don agrees with me on this.
I do agree with you. That's a very good point. And it's good to get to know the marketplace and what prices are. And $2,000 a month down here would buy you a pretty nice place.
Yeah. Just an example. I've seen it a lot happen in like Puerto Vallarta, or I've seen it in Playa del Carmen, usually the areas where there's a lot of like digital nomads that come and spend maybe just 3-6 months, while they get a chance to work from home, which I think is awesome. But also, maybe they're not thinking long term, and then they come and they post these like really high budgets, and guess what, that ends up being now the normal for that area, which ends up pricing out everyone else who actually plans on living there full time. So anyway, just a little thing. Well, thank you, Don. I really appreciate your time, and thank you all for watching from home. I hope this has been helpful to you.
And thank you for inviting me. It was my first time doing this, and it was very enjoyable.
Great. Yeah, you're great. You're great. For the rest of you, I have another live stream coming up on May 25th at 6 p.m. And before you sign off, I do have a small coupon that you guys are able to use until tomorrow. Until tomorrow, May 19th, until 12 p.m. Central Standard Time on the Complete Mexico Relocation Guide. So if you're thinking about moving to Mexico and you want to save yourself the hours and hours of research that you need to do. We've put it all together in an online course for you. And then we also give you a lot of our contacts in the Lake Chapala area and other areas in Mexico that can help you get situated, like immigration, like drivers, like a lot of these contacts that you normally need to get at the beginning to help you get situated. So if you're interested in that, sign up for the newsletter and I will send you a coupon, which is available until tomorrow afternoon.
And I've met some people here who have used your services and your articles and stuff and really recommended it. So you guys have a really good reputation.
That's awesome. I'm happy about that. Thank you, Don. Well, thank you all, and I will see you guys next week. Nos vemos. Muchas gracias, Don.
Buenos dias. Buenas noches.
Buenas